You're listening to Beezy Beez Sleep Stories, created for the restless, the curious, and those who find themselves wide awake when the world goes quiet. To listen to more stories like this one, please visit deepbearsleep.com. Tonight's story, Walking the Lines, a field guide to choosing your life. Let's begin. Chapter 1, The Elevator That Didn't Stop. Not in the dramatic, cinematic way where cables snap and everyone screams. In my world, things unravel quietly. The little screen stalled on 4, blinked, sighed, and then the doors never opened. 10 minutes became 15. My coffee cooled to a skin on top. I could feel the stress charging through my chest like a distant storm rolling closer. Of course, I whispered, as if the universe had nothing better to do than underline the obvious. I was late. Again. I had promised myself this morning was going to be different. New mantra, new playlist, new me. And then the elevator did what elevators do when they've lived a day longer than they were designed to live. It shrugged. It wasn't even malicious, just tired like me. I jabbed the door open button 3 more times as though the elevator might be guilted into trying harder. Nothing. Finally, I exhaled, the kind of breath that sounds like surrender, and pressed the emergency intercom. A bored voice answered, asked if we were okay, and then told us to wait. A technician is on the way. The corridor hummed around the elevator shaft. Somewhere a fluorescent tube buzzed like a persistent gnat. In the mirrored panel, I studied the version of myself that attends Monday morning budget meetings. Hair swept back too tightly, suit jacket hiding a coffee stain that only I could see, eyes already over it. My name is Mara, in case you were wondering, and I am a professional drawer of lines. I produce the lines that keep the money aligned with the plans, which in theory should make me feel safe. Lines that add up. Lines that fence in uncertainty. Lines that lately have started to look a lot like cages. A man in a work uniform stood a few feet away, leaning on a yellow mop handle, the universal scepter of custodians everywhere. The building's daytime janitor. I'd seen him 100 times, or maybe 1,000. He was one of those steady background presences your brain files under, always there. Thin, gray hair cut close, soft eyes that had probably seen entire lifetimes of human rush. Some days the building doesn't want to be a building, he said, not looking at me. He spoke to the elevator as if it were an old friend with a stiff back. I blinked. Is that what's happening? The building's taking a personal day? He smiled. Could be. Or maybe it wants you on a different floor today. I need to be on 12, I said, which is the opposite direction of different. He nodded, as though I'd revealed something profound. Sometimes the shortest way up doesn't involve going up, he said. I stared at him. He wasn't being cute. He was calm, like a small lake at dawn. I craved that calm the way a dry mouth craves a drop of water. Okay, I said, because when the elevator refuses your request, you search for any string to grab. What do you suggest? Stairwell? Stairwell's one way. He tilted his head. Another way is to let this moment be what it is. Oh, I've tried that, letting. It turns out things still happen. He chuckled. Things always happen. But how much they push you around depends on your grip. My grip, I echoed. On the wheel, on the outcome, on the idea you're clutching. He tapped the elevator door lightly, like a doctor listening to a heartbeat. Clutching makes the world push back. Loosen your grip, and it starts opening in the oddest places. I thought about my tight ponytail, my clenched jaw, the way I had begged the elevator button as though it could feel my need. So if I... What? Relax. The elevator starts working. His eyes warmed. Maybe not this elevator. Maybe a different one. Maybe no elevator at all. You'd be surprised what appears when you stop demanding it show up in one costume. I considered arguing. I considered rolling my eyes and rushing for the stairs. But I didn't move. Because if I'm honest, I was exhausted from the part of me that argues with everything. The part that talks loudly on the inside. The part that wakes me up at 3 a.m. to list out things I can't fix with the lights off. How exactly does one loosen their grip on an elevator? I asked finally. He leaned his mop in the corner. Want a trick? He said. 2 minutes, here in the hallway, and it might change the rest of your day. 2 minutes felt like everything I didn't have and exactly what I needed. Fine, I said. Trick me. He gestured to a battered plastic chair by the vending machine. I sat. He stood, hands in his pockets, the way a grandfather might stand in a backyard, watching a storm decide whether or not to rain. Close your eyes, he said. I'll keep watch. Nothing's going to happen that we can't handle. I closed them, half out of skepticism and half out of relief. The last thing I saw was the elevator display blinking its stubborn number 4. Breathe in slowly, he said. Count to 4, hold it for 4, let it out for 6. Do that 3 times. I did. Something shifted as air filled my lungs, like a room where someone remembered to open a window. My shoulders sank a bit. Now, he continued, float your attention 2 feet behind your head, as if there's a soft cushion there. You are sitting in your own quiet seat, just behind your thoughts. Look forward from there and notice the hallway, the elevator, the clock, the worries, like a picture. You are not inside the picture. You're in the seat behind it. I saw it strangely clear even with my eyes closed, like the hallway turned into a framed photo and I stepped back. Behind the picture, the color drained out of my urgency. The image remained, but the grip eased. What you're noticing, he said softly, is the field of maybes. Most people stand inside their moment with their fists up, trying to make one thing happen. Maybes are all the other gentle paths waving at you from the edges. You won't see them while you're clutching the center, field of maybes. It sounded like something a poet makes up to impress a date. But it felt real. The more I sat in that soft place behind my thoughts, the more the corridor in my mind widened. Options I hadn't considered walked in through a side door. I could call into the meeting instead of presenting in person. I could ask Jordan to swap time slots. I could move the meeting. I could send the numbers and talk this afternoon after the fire drill of a morning had burned out. Now, he said, let a small scene play the way you'd like it to feel, not the way you're afraid it will go, not the steps, just the feel. How is noon you moving through today? I'm good at lists, not feelings. But I tried. I pictured myself at noon with my shoulders dropped and the air inside me clear, calm, not because everything turned out perfectly, but because I didn't need it to. I felt that small relief glow behind my ribs the way sunlight warms a mug on a windowsill. Okay, he said, let the scene be ordinary. Not a lottery win. Just your normal, but with the volume turned down on urgency. Keep it small. Keep it kind. Let your body register that it's already true somewhere. I could feel my pulse slow. The scene wasn't grand. I was at my desk. I was typing. I was sipping tea I hadn't spilled. Emails were emails. I was the part of myself that doesn't flinch whenever someone says, "Do you have a minute?" He let me stay there for a while, just breathing. The building hummed. Footsteps passed and faded. Somewhere, someone laughed, a bright sound that fell like a marble and rolled away. Now open your eyes, he said. I did. I expected nothing and got Nothing. The hallway was the hallway. The elevator was still on 4. The fluorescent light remembered it was buzzing. "Feel different?" he asked. "A little," I admitted. The weirdest ache loosened behind my collarbones, but the elevator is still stubborn. He nodded. "Like I said, maybe not this elevator." I stood. My phone shivered in my jacket pocket like a small animal waking up. A text from Jordan. "Morning. Boss running late. Can we move the budget review to 1 p.m.? Gives me time to review your notes." A second text arrived before I could type a reply. Also, the live stream option got fixed. "You can present from your desk if easier." I looked at the janitor. "Coincidence," I said, because a part of me insists on a rational face. "The field is rational," he said, "just wider than your worry." I laughed once, a short bark. "Okay, fine. You win. I'll take the stairs, go to my desk, breathe like a reasonable mammal, and present at 1. Thank you. K," he said. "Just K." "Just K," I repeated. "I owe you coffee." He waved a hand. "Coffee is another elevator." I decided not to pretend I understood him. I thanked him again and reached for the stairwell door. My hand brushed something cold near the vending machine. A small metal object was hooked onto the side with a magnet, a key, plain, brass, worn at the edges like it had lived a life. Kay watched me notice it. He didn't move toward it. He didn't tell me not to. He simply said, "Sometimes the world leaves you little doors." I lifted the key. It was heavier than it looked. "To what?" I asked. "You'll know when you stand near the lock that wants you," Kay said. "It'll feel like a quiet yes." "That's not how keys work," I said. "That's exactly how keys work," he replied. And for a moment I had the sensation that I was confusing locks and doors and perhaps entire decades of my life. The stairwell smelled like concrete and cleaner. My phone buzzed again. Jordan being efficient, kind, human. And I started down, the key warming my palm. On the second landing, a thought rose so crisp and clear it was like a caption in the air. What if the shortest way up doesn't involve going up? I smiled. I walked faster. By the time I reached my desk, the calm hadn't left. I didn't cling to it. I let it sit beside me, like a friend who doesn't talk much. I rescheduled my morning, adjusted my slides, sent Jordan a thank you. In the new space the day gave me, I opened a spreadsheet I'd been avoiding, and to my shock, it softly organized itself, as if numbers too enjoy being invited rather than forced. At 12:47 p.m., a chat message popped up. "You good?" I typed back, "I'm better than good." "I'm fine," I meant it. The presentation at 1 o'clock went well in the most unremarkable way. No fireworks, no disasters. Jordan nodded in all the right places. My boss asked a question, and I answered without apologizing for having an answer. The meeting ended 3 minutes early. Someone said, "Nice work," and it didn't feel like a consolation prize. At 3:10, in the small hush after the caffeine wore off, I remembered the key. I took it out and set it on my desk. It glinted like an idea I couldn't quite recall. What door would it open? Maybe none. Maybe the vending machine cage in the lobby. Maybe a broom closet. Maybe my imagination. I picked it up and felt the faintest tingle in my fingertips. The echo of the hallway, calm. I typed "field of maybes" into a blank note on my phone. Then I added grip, scene, keys that say yes. After work I walked for a while. The city breathed in long avenues and exhaled in cross streets. People spoke into invisible microphones as if calling lines down from a cloud. I passed a storefront I'd never noticed. Because how many hundreds of doors do we ignore just by not letting our eyes soften? And paused. The door was painted robin's egg blue, in faded gold lettering, second chances and repairs. In the window, lamps with new cords, watches with careful hands, a music box that might remember your grandmother. The sign said, "Open." I felt the key in my pocket like a small animal turning in its sleep. Inside, the store smelled of wood and old paper. A bell tinkled. A woman with a scarf around her hair looked up from a counter strewn with tiny screwdrivers. "Hi there," she said. "What did you bring me?" "I don't know yet," I said, which seemed like a peculiar way to begin a transaction. She laughed. "That's all right. Things sometimes don't know what they are until we touch them." I took out the key. The woman's eyes warmed. "Ah," she said, as if the key had introduced itself. "You're looking for something." "A lock," I guessed. "A fit," she said. "It's different." "I don't know where to start," I confessed. She pointed to a cabinet full of small drawers behind her. "Try the third drawer, middle row." "You just guessed," I said. She shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm not guessing." I opened the drawer. Inside were dozens of old locks, labeled in neat handwriting. Desk, 1940s. Hope chest, cedar. Gate, unknown yard. I picked up a small brass lock. It felt indifferent. I set it down. I reached for another, a dark iron one, heavy with former purposes. It made my palm feel tired. Finally, I noticed a lock tucked in the corner. Simple, scratched, nothing special. I picked it up and felt a quiet yes. The soft, undeniable click of matching shapes meeting for the first time in a long time. I didn't test the key. I didn't need to. The yes vibrated faintly through my fingers to the place behind my heart where the calm had taken a chair. "How much?" I asked, lifting the lock. She named a price. It wasn't expensive, but it wasn't nothing either. I paid. She wrapped the lock in brown paper as if it were bread. On my way out, I asked, "What did this lock used to hold?" She paused, then smiled. "Maybe a drawer. Maybe a diary. Maybe a door inside a wall that someone built so carefully they forgot it was there." That night, I put the lock on my nightstand next to the key. The street light drew a pale rectangle on the carpet. I turned off my lamp, lay down, and waited for my mind to begin its nightly parade of what-ifs and why-didn'ts. It started, as usual, with the clatter of a marching band. But then I put my attention just behind my head, in the seat Kay showed me, and the parade faded to a distant practice in another part of town. Sleep came so gently that I almost didn't notice. In the space between day and night, I thought I heard someone whisper, "The shortest way up doesn't always involve going up." The voice sounded like mine if I were older, kinder, and very patient. Just before I drifted all the way under, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I didn't open my eyes. I tried to ignore it, but the buzz came again and again, soft at first, then insistent, until I reached for the screen. A single message glowed in the dark from an unknown number. "Tomorrow bring the key." I stared at the lock beside it, breathing in the odd, almost sweet scent of possibility. I might have dreamed that it glowed, a tiny pulse like a firefly at rest, but I won't swear to it. All I know is, sleep finally felt like a door I got to open instead of a trial I had to survive. And in the morning, if the world let me, I'd carry a key to a lock I hadn't yet found, and find out what happens when you stop gripping and start choosing. To be continued.